Hello, good morning and welcome to the Sunday Supplement. On the agenda today, my dad's bigger than your dad. Louis van Gaal tells Manchester City they'll never be as big as Manchester United. Rio Ferdinand, he's ready to pull the plug on his work with the FA after he was banned for 3 games following his inappropriate tweet. And listen, that is the sound of Stamford Bridge on match day, according to Chelsea manager Jose Mourinho. 3 guests making a noise this morning. Andy Dunn, chief sports columnist at the Sunday Mirror. John Richardson, the football correspondent at the Sunday Express. And Matt Lawton is here. He's the chief sports reporter at the Daily Mail. Morning to you guys. Good to see you. As ever, lots to talk about this morning. Let's have a look at the back of the front pages of the sports pullouts this morning. This is the Sunday Telegraph. Then Louis van Gaal, he says we're a far bigger club than Manchester City. He goes on to talk about social media, how many followers they've got on Twitter. Does it really make a difference? They play at the Etihad this afternoon, and the picture, cheer up Jose. Should be happy. They're 4 points clear of Southampton at the top of the Premier League, but he's not happy with Chelsea's fans. He says there's not enough atmosphere at Stamford Bridge on match days. This is the Sunday Times. Steven Gerrard, the captain of Liverpool, played against Newcastle yesterday. They lost at St James's Park, but the tug of war, it's on, according to the Sunday Times. Gerrard hinted in the week that he could leave Liverpool if he doesn't get offered a new contract. Brendan Rodgers said after that game yesterday that he does want to keep him beyond his 35th birthday. The Independent on Sunday, confirmation from Pellegrini that he wants Steven Gerrard perhaps to replace Frank Lampard, who'll be off to New York City next year. City, they're light years behind United. That's Van Gaal on the back page of The Sun this morning. The Mail on Sunday, City in hunt for Steven Gerrard. Lots of talk about the derby this morning. Red men walking. Van Gaal confident of beating Manchester City in his first derby. Aggro, that's the back page of the Sunday Mirror this morning. This is a dispute between Sergio Aguero and the Manchester United defender, the fellow Argentine defender, Marcos Rojo. We'll talk about that in a moment. John's got all the detail on that. This is the Sun's goals pullouts. I can go out on the tune. Alan Pardew rediscovers his sense of humour after Newcastle won yesterday, beating Liverpool at St James's Park. He said he was off out to celebrate with Newcastle United supporters. The Mail on Sunday, very, very similar story. But back to the Manchester derby, John, because your paper this morning, Louis van Gaal says that United are the bigger team. Manuel Pellegrini says that Manchester City are the bigger team. Does it really matter? What's the point of the two managers going head to head over something that feels as innocuous as this? They're two big clubs. They're two clubs that want to win a huge game and get themselves into the top 4.
The game doesn't need revving up, does it? But this is back in the playground, really. I mean, Pellegrini was first off on Friday morning. He was asked the question about the last few years. You know, are City the better team? He came out with the fact, yeah, they've won 2 titles out of the last 3 seasons. And then tit for tat, Louis van Gaal is asked, and he goes on about the history of Manchester United, that they won 20 titles, you know, that they're a bigger club over the world, bigger global appeal. So it's tit for tat, and, you know, you don't have to sell this game, but it's what happens now that matters. Both managers, in their own right, were right. You know, you can't argue with the fact that City have been the dominant force in the last few years. You can't also argue with the fact that United have been huge over the years. So it was, as I say, you don't have to get revved up about this. Both managers just answered questions, and as journalists, we rev it up.
We report it, and we report it faithfully.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be a boring world if neither rose to the bait. They did. So it's great, and it set it up nicely for which, again, you know, everybody wants to see.
Is it as intense, the rivalry? Is this rivalry as intense as it's ever been since you've been covering the two clubs?
I think it is, because in the opening years, I mean, City weren't really there. It was Manchester United and Liverpool. Alex Ferguson always went on about that. He always said that Liverpool was the bigger game, which obviously annoyed the Manchester City fans. And then he called them the noisy neighbours, and the noisy neighbours are making a big noise. And it is fantastic to be in that area, because there is that rivalry now, and you know, we all love it. And you know, roll on this afternoon, we can't wait.
And City really, they shouldn't really get embroiled into any sort of tit for tat. We're bigger than you, or you're bigger than us, or etc. etc. They shouldn't really have the need to get involved in that, because they're really at the stage that United say, football-wise, we're at, you know, in the early 90s, basically trying to establish a platform of domestic dominance, which United did before then going on to be successful in the Champions League. So, and that's where City are at the moment. It's 2 out of 3, you know, 2 titles in 3 seasons. They need to do what United did, which was, you know, I think 4 in 6, I think, in the early 90s, something like that. So they don't really need to get involved in any of this nonsense, really.
Well, thankfully they have.
Yeah, thankfully they do. They filled plenty of space in the papers this morning. Matt, how important is this for Van Gaal, his first Manchester derby? Ryan, I noticed he talked about Ryan Giggs on Friday because he said when Giggs gave the tactical presentation to him that there was more emphasis because it was Manchester City. How important it is for Van Gaal to get off to a good start here, because Moyes got off to a losing start at the Etihad last season in this game.
We lost 4-1. It is important because I actually think I watched that game last week and I didn't think United were as good as perhaps was suggested afterwards. I thought they were quite lucky. I thought Chelsea really should have. It's a bit like yesterday's game against QPR. Chelsea, incredibly dominant, but almost let it slip again yesterday, and they really should have won that game. And I think that was summed up in Mourinho's mood afterwards. So I thought they got a little bit lucky. It did show a kind of Fergie-style defiance to fight to the very end and get that late goal. But no, I think they need to play well today. I wouldn't get too carried away with what happened last week.
It's hugely important, Neil. It's hugely important just in terms of the league table and where they stand. If United were to lose, then, listen, I'm sure most United fans now have given up on any idea they're going to win the title. Van Gaal hasn't and shouldn't. But if they lost today, then it would be a virtual impossibility for them to win the title. So I think just from the point of view of where they stand in the league, it's hugely important.
Also, there's the fact that City won 4 of the last 5 derbies.
Yes.
And you don't have to remind Manchester United fans of that. They were used to having things their own way, haven't gone their own way, and they've got to get back today.
Why Manchester City? They seem to switch off after a title-winning season. They did under Mancini. They seem to have done under Pellegrini. They're 9 points behind Chelsea going into this game this afternoon. Why isn't that squad motivated to win title after title? As Andy pointed out, Manchester United were relentless in the 90s and after the turn of the millennium as well.
Yeah, it's strange. It's only a few weeks ago that I interviewed Zabaleta, and he was making the point that everything was finally sort of coming together for them and that they were a settled team. There were players there that have now been there for 4 or 5 years, so it was a settled dressing room. Some of the egos that were causing problems in the past are gone, and everything was how it should be, really, to keep building and keep chasing titles. So it's hard to explain. I think there are some key issues. I think Fernandinho and Toure have not been right in central midfield.
Mangala at the back as well.
I think there's a bit too much chopping and changing. The irony is, and it's always the curse of the interviewer, that you interview someone and the piece goes in that day and he's dropped about 4 hours later. So he's switching his back 4 around a little bit too much. Maybe he's moving the keepers around. I don't know whether there's a bit too much chopping and changing.
I think it's quite simple. I don't think City have improved their squad. I thought the buys in the summer haven't improved them. Mangala, 32 million. I mean, is he better, for instance, than Johnny and Lescott? I don't think so. I think Lescott did a good job for City. You're talking about 32 million for a player like that. Fernando, I don't think, is an upgrade on Fernandinho. I just don't think they're bought well.
And they're missing their player of the month as well.
Well, absolutely.
Frank Lampard.
Frank Lampard. Yeah, well, that was a shock. That Frank was even there. He was there because of New York, of course. And Frank has done well. But City have not moved on. And let's face it, Mancini got the sack, didn't he, after failing to win the league next season. There were other reasons for it.
He hasn't failed to win the league yet.
I'm not saying he has yet, but I'm just saying Mancini did get the sack for that.
I just don't think... I think this idea of City in crisis or in turmoil or in trouble, I just think is ludicrous. I mean, I really just do not buy into it at all. People have used those stats about how they're even worse off in this defence of their title than they were when they defended in 2012-13. But then you look back at this time last season, Manchester City, who won the title last season, had less points at this stage of the season than they've got now. And they were 7th in the table going into their 10th game of the season they go into today. This idea that they're in some sort of trouble is based on 3 games, one of which, the West Ham game, they probably actually should have at least got a draw, probably on chances, maybe deserved to nick it, but that's the way a football match goes. They didn't. They hit the bar a couple of times. Adram is some good saves. They were careless in Moscow, and they were pretty poor against Newcastle, but that's it, really. I don't really sort of see... I think Pellegrini has sort of come under a little bit too much unfair scrutiny over these results.
I
really do.
That, in case you don't get to pick up a copy of the Sunday Mirror this morning, is Andy Dunn's column, City in Crisis.
You can pick it up, Andy, I expand on it.
What crisis? You say they're not, Andy, but if they don't get themselves back in the Champions League this week,
the Champions League
look
is
forward to that, CSK and Oscar.
the Champions League.
If they don't win that game and they find themselves in a position where they can't get out of that group, then where will in terms of Pellegrini's standing at that club, where will it be?
Well, questions will be asked, no doubt about it. Let's be fair now, Manchester.
By us, supporters?
No, by the
players
board,
or the
board.
board?
Because Pellegrini was brought in for this holistic approach, generally to get everything right. We don't have the bust-ups on the training ground anymore, fair enough. But he's also been brought in to win the Champions League. That's why he's brought in. And Manchester City are now a sacking club. They proved that with Mark Hughes. They proved it with Mancini. So Pellegrini's not safe. And also you've got the ghost of Pep Guardiola, who City would love as their next manager. Now, all right, Pep is talking about staying at Bayern for another 2 years. But the ghost is there, and it's hovering over Pellegrini.
That's the man they want, is it? You're convinced Guardiola is the next man for Manchester City when they can get him?
Absolutely.
That'll probably it'll probably be a natural succession then, won't it?
It could be. It could be a natural succession in 2 years, but you never know in football. Suddenly, if Guardiola wants to leave Bayern Munich, don't worry, Manchester City will go straight in, and Pellegrini would be sacrificed.
The idea, though, is this idea that Mancini got sacked for finishing second, essentially. That's not the reason, is it, why he was sacked?
No, he was sacked because of all the rows on the training ground and blah, blah, blah. But Brian Clough used to have arguments with his players, but, they kept him on and he still won things. This is basically still Mancini's team.
Yeah, but, I mean, listen, Sir Alex Ferguson didn't get sacked when he was unsuccessful in the Champions League, when he was winning Premier League titles. City finished first, so far, and I really, honestly, I do find it unfathomable that Pellegrini could be under any sort of pressure.
I agree, and it's almost like, they wanted to go for a calmer, more sort of assured, composed manager after the sort of combustible Mancini, and now it's like, oh, we're not. I think, I'm not so sure that they're as close to pulling the trigger.
I'm not saying they're close to pulling the trigger now, but they go out of Europe. The pressure.
You're saying they know who they want. That's the key point here. They want Guardiola. If and when he leaves Bayern Munich, they beat Borussia Dortmund last night. Late comeback for them. Matt, just to finish up on United or the two managers, but Van Gaal, from what you've seen of him so far, have you been impressed? It's taking time for him to get his points across to the players. That's obvious, just judging by the results. But have you been impressed with him?
I was impressed with him at the World Cup. I think he's. I think he's very straight and honest with us. I think, from a journalistic point of view, he's good value. I think he is honest. I think he can be a little bit tetchy. But I think the bit that slightly baffled me is the whole philosophy thing. He came in with a philosophy. He came in with a way he was going to play. This was the way United were going to play. That was abandoned pretty quickly. But I think he's the right man for the job. But I think it's a hard job. I think it's a long road ahead for him. I think it's such a massive rebuilding job. They're great going forward. A great set of forwards.
So how long will it take to get this?
But they're still fragile. They need to keep buying players. The centre halves aren't good enough. They need to keep investing.
And if you look at the sort of the quality of the opposition that they've faced, with no disrespect, they haven't really, Chelsea apart, they've had a fairly easy-looking fixture list. And to get this amount of points out of that, no matter what rebuilding transition philosophy phase you're in, you really would have expected them to get more out of these opening 9 games than they have. Simple as that.
Yeah, certainly would. John, just wanted to talk through. We love a good bust up on this show. Not around this time. It's too early, of course, but a couple of stories this morning. Sunday Mirror on the back page. Aggro, which is a play on Sergio Aguero's surname, and running scared. This is an event that. Sergio Aguero should have turned up to, Marcus Rojo as well. Talk us through.
Well, it was well organised by City and United. 4 players, all Argentinians, when they turn up, including Sergio Aguero. And we were supposed to, Sunday newspapers, speak to Aguero and Marcus Rojo. Rojo was there, but Aguero wasn't. So we know there's history between Rojo and Aguero, so we just asked the question.
Which is?
Well, evidently it's over Aguero's current partner used to go out with a mate of Rojo's, and Rojo invited this pop star, as he is in Argentina, into the dressing room after a World Cup group game.
As you do.
As you do, and Aguero wasn't very happy about it. And so there was a row ensued. No fisticuffs or anything, but relations were strained. And this was supposed to be the first time they'd come face to face on Friday at this sort of event for the kids. The kids were looking forward to Aguero coming. We were looking forward to Aguero. You don't get many opportunities to speak to one of the best players in the world, but he didn't turn up, and Manchester City were very embarrassed, said, oh, he was picking up relatives from Manchester Airport. Well, we didn't go for that, and we stuck to our guns. They offered James Milner via the telephone, which was very nice of them, but in fairness to James, not quite Sergio Aguero. Nice lad that he is, and good player that he is, but we were looking forward to Sergio Aguero. So we just loaded the ammunition for Rojo and said, oh, your mate's not here, why isn't he here? And he says, oh, he could be running scared, so thanks very much. So
that's why it's made it onto the back.
That's where we are.
Matt, should there be more antagonism with the players? We're seeing a little bit here with Aguero and Rojo, perhaps, but in the past we've seen Gary Neville with Peter Schmeichel when he played for Manchester City. We've seen at the other end of the scale Keane and Alfie Inge Haaland when they were playing for United and City. But now it's, as Keane points out in his book, it's all hugs in the dressing room area and in the tunnel. It's football gone a different way.
I don't know if it's gone a different way. I think it was last year after the derby. I think it was it Rooney's birthday and Joe Hart was out, or vice versa. I remember they were in Wings Chinese in Manchester together. When I saw Zabaleta, he said he'd been showing Di Maria around Manchester, which you'd expect him to do. Like, they're both, they're international teammates. Obviously, Rojo and Aguero don't get on so well, but Zabaleta's a really nice lad. Speaks perfect English, knows the city. Di Maria turns up, lives around the corner. Of course, he's going to take him out and show him around, and the wives and girlfriends or whatever.
You're not so sure, are you?
Yeah, I don't want them kissing and cuddling in the corridor.
In the end, the colleagues in the sense of the professional footballers.
What do the fans think? What do the fans think when they see them kissing and cuddling? The fans don't kiss and cuddle before the games, do they?
They may do.
Why is that changed over the years? We think of the Vieira incident with Keane in the tunnel at Highbury. Why has it changed?
I've got to say, it's a bit of a cliche, but there's more foreign players here now, and I don't think they get the derbies like the English or the British players do. And you were brought up in those days. There was a hatred. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong, but that's what happened.
You want to say it's wrong?
I don't. But listen, see, you're an English journalist working in a foreign country for a certain paper, and then there's another English journalist working in a foreign country for a different paper. You're both after the same story, but you have a pint together, don't you? And you get on, you shake hands. It's not,
I think anything to do with it.
The perfect example. Once the whistle, Once the whistle blows, all bets are off. We saw that in 2006 at the World Cup with Ronaldo and Rooney, like their teammates, their club mates, but. The moment that whistle blows and they're on opposite sides, it is business and it is competitive. And the fact of the matter is, Ronaldo was delighted to see Rooney get sent off that day. Yeah. And the wink and everything else. Yeah. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters that it was.
You don't see John Terry kissing and cuddling people, do you? Before games, he stares.
I don't know where you're going to go with that one, but
can we leave you two kiss and cuddle for the cameras?
We get on
because we need to go to a break. You are friends, though, aren't you? You live in the same. You almost live in the same.
Yeah, we all
live in the same house.
Okay, moving on. Let's move on to Rio Ferdinand.